Hi, I'm Scott Allan. Welcome to the Footballers Football Show. Alongside me today is Alan Rough and our special guest, Kevin Harper. So Kevin, great to have you with us. How does a boy who was born in Oldham, moved to Possil, end up at Hibs?
Long story, mate. I don't think we've got enough time for it. Do you know what I mean? But no, my mum was down in Oldham. She lived down in Oldham. Then came back up here. We ended up in the West End for a couple of weeks, and then got a house in Possil. So obviously rough part of Glasgow. You know, poor part of Glasgow, and then just started playing football. The only reason I done that was my mate I was out playing, as you do as kids, with my mate, and he's like, I need to go to football. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And he's like, I don't know. So I went up and asked my mum if I could go, and then that's how it started. Celtic North, and then I went to West Park, and I was playing at 50 pitches in Paisley, playing a tournament. Obviously there was a bit of crowd noise in the pit watching me. Alec Miller, the Hibs manager at the time, was watching his son, turned around and saw the commotion of me ripping it up, and then that's how it went.
The 50 pitches, I remember playing in them myself. Did you go? What was it like living there? Was it just everything filled with football for you, or was there a lot of different things going on at that time?
I think that was the 80s, so as a black kid in Possilpark there wasn't many about, if I'm honest. There was one other, but stayed in a different part of Possil. So you can imagine as a childhood with two white parents, which looks a bit weird, and a black kid. Obviously my biological dad died when I was 6 months, so I didn't know him. So it was tough, but it was a good upbringing for me. It was really good in the sense of community. I think you don't get that now, but it had its challenges. Drugs capital of Europe when I was growing up and stuff, but some of my mates have passed away due to drugs, young, but I was lucky enough that I had football.
How would you say that you avoided going down that path?
Football strong. My mum was strong, but I think also for me it was, I had a talent and I didn't want to waste it, and I had the opportunity. I had my club coaches were really good because my mum couldn't afford football boots. They couldn't afford the trips, and they bought football boots for me, got me to trips. So for Bert Round and Billy Harvey, who unfortunately are no longer here, were really important people for me.
Did you get a lot of grief, obviously being a black person living in Possil at that time, and obviously feeling like you were in a minority at that time?
I got a bit like any black kid would, and but you know what it's like when you're in a scheme. It's either fight or flight, and as a black kid you probably get into more fights than you probably need to. And you get a reputation for yourself in the sense that he'll just fight you, which happens, but as I say, I was fortunate enough that as I grew up I got a wee bit streetwise and tended to stay away from that. I was pretty much training as a teenager every single day, which was great. So I've got a lot to thank football for, but I've also got a lot to thank Possil for as well. Because it was a tough upbringing, and when you're in football and you're not playing, you know yourself how difficult it can be, how mentally tough it can be, and that helped me get through some of the tough times.
It's amazing what football brings people together. You're saying obviously, but if you're part of a football team and you're particularly good at that age, your mates run about you, respect you for the football, and not for who you are or what you are, where you come from. And the football, obviously, over the years, you grow up with, and you get a lot of friends through that. So it's absolutely amazing what you've done with it. There's tons of players come out of Possil. Lots of good players come out of there.
Was it tough for you, obviously, growing up in Knightswood?
I was Knightswood, I was a Knightswood boy, but I'm the same. I mean, but I didn't think these 50 pitches were still there when you were playing.
Yeah.
We used to play in the 50 pitches in the morning and then in the afternoon at night. If you go back there now, there's only two. There's only two pitches in that area, But no, Knightswood is the same for me. The multi-story park across the road, couple of goalposts across the road, and that's where you lived. You just lived there morning and night, and you lived till your mum or your dad shouted you in at night.
Then he asked for an extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
I think, especially for me, I grew up in Cardonald, and it'll probably be the same for you. The kind of older ones who were maybe on different paths, if they ever kind of seen you maybe go down that route because you knew you were a good footballer, they would be the first to kind of chin you and say...
Or you had a ball.
Aye.
If you had a ball, you were minted if you had a ball.
So that's even like me, you know, my mum couldn't afford even a football for me, so I had to go to my pals and hopefully they would come out, or just ask the mum and dad, my mates, if they would give me a ball just to use, you know. And thankfully, because you were that, you know, you always played with their friend, their son, or their daughter, their son, obviously, football, so they were willing to give you it because they knew you were a good kid and that's all you wanted to do. So, you know, that's why I say, Posso, I've got a lot to thank people for. And, you know, at the weekends you were just up the pitches all the time, you know, 15 aside, and, you know, all age groups.
And another thing I think later on in life for us being footballers that we don't really appreciate were the guys who organised the teams.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned a couple there that aren't here anymore. I remember a guy called Archie Schooler who just formed a team for Knightswood for the flats. You know, and without people like that, you know, where would we be?
Oh, 100%. I think the time that they give up, you know, I've done it before, and it's a lot of time to give up. You know, it's almost like a full-time job, you know, but you're working all the time. You're pretty much working all the time, and that was without doing any of the admin stuff. So the admin stuff, which I would not be interested in, the coaching stuff, yeah, but the admin stuff, it takes its time as well.
I think for the type of guys, though, their joy is then seeing someone like a young Kevin obviously going on and having a first team career. They obviously go about looking for the next one in these sort of areas. As a kid, who would you say you kind of modelled your game on?
I think when I say heroes or people that I looked up to were Mark Walters, John Barnes, and probably Allan McCoist. Believe it or not, John Barnes and Mark Walters, for how he dealt with the whole racism stuff, the bananas, and, you know, getting through it, was for me one of the catalysts for me to say, yeah, I can do this in this industry.
See, from a young age, seeing the type of things that Mark Walters had went through, were you really aware of that in yourself at the time?
Yeah, because when I was playing, you know, it was 11-a-sides all the time there, you know, so as being one of the better players in the team, or the best player in the team, you always got it, and being a black kid there, so parents and kids and family around the side, you got it for 90 minutes, because you played 90 minutes back then, you know, so you got that racial abuse for 90 minutes round that pitch, and that was at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you know, so it was constant. You know, by the time I got to 11 and 12, I just programmed myself into going, right, for 90 minutes I'm going to get racially abused here, because...
But that's not normal, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We spoke about on the show before about things you go through in terms of social media, but to program yourself to think that that's acceptable is in itself like a huge problem, and obviously it was a huge problem back then. But it's incredible that as a young kid you can accept that for 90 minutes just because you were so used to it. It happened.
It's incredible. The now modern day, all we are talking about is mental health.
Yep.
Players with mental health. What are kids that are coming up at 10 and 11 and 12, what they've got to deal with? And the way back then, nobody was talking about mental health. No. You were on your own.
Yeah.
Just go on with it. You know, there was nobody you could turn to. Nobody would be... Well, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, about man management. A manager in a dressing room notice as a player's a wee bit down and that. There was nobody coming up to you and talking to you about mental health the way back then.
The irony for me was when I went to the professional game, I thought it would stop, and it never. So that's like when I look at it and you go, you know, making my debut at 17 at Hibs, going in at 15 and going, brilliant, I don't need to go on a Sunday and I'm going to get this 100%. But
see, even at that time, were you expecting every ground you went to have some sort of abuse, or by that time you were thinking, well, now at a level which professional football that should be? That was.
I thought I had got away from it. You know, when I went to professional football, I thought I was, yes, that's me, brilliant. I can park that. I can put that there. I'm not going to get that. How silly was that as a young kid? How naive as a kid? But you know, it's something that is still going on just now.
Speaking of like mental health, see, as a young kid, did that get to you? Did you have people you could go and speak to, or was it something you kind of dealt from within?
I dealt with from within because my mum was white and my dad was white. I didn't have any brothers or sisters that, you know, or anybody that I could go to that was black, so I had to just deal with it myself. And how I dealt with that, you know, I would never tell my son to deal with it the way I dealt with it, because it was either just be angry and just go and fight and go and just be angry. But then when you go back into your room, you're like sitting, trying to think about it and trying to get, you know, that thought process of just what happened and trying to process it. You can't process that as a 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old. You know, some of the time you can't even process it as an adult. You know, and I look back and it's the one thing I probably get emotional about, you know, when I talk about racism.
You mentioned Alec Miller. What was it like signing your first contract?
I know we've got a couple of funny stories, but I think this is pretty funny as well. So he comes up in his BMW up to Possilpark, and he obviously chat to myself and my mum, and he chats and he says, "Yeah, listen, we want to sign you." And I was delighted. This is what we're going to do, and had a pathway. And then he goes down the stair, and somebody's broke into his car and stole his radio. Oh. So I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to happen. No, yeah. So I'm like, I'm not getting signed here. But luckily enough, he did sign me, and somebody got a few quid for his car radio.
Which manager in your career would you say got the best out of you?
I think there's been a few, if I'm honest with you, because I've took something from every one of them. I know it's probably an old cliche, but even the bad ones, you know. But I think for me, when I look at it, you know, the grounding that I got from Alec Miller and the knowledge that he had of football was second to none. You know, when I think he got sacked when Hibs were sitting third in the league because he didn't think we were attacking enough, when probably the only defensive person we had in the midfield was Brian Hamilton, because we had Mickey Weir, we had Kevin McAllister, we had myself, Keith Wright, Darren Jackson, Pat McGinley, you know, so that's the good players. But I think when I look at the transition from being starting as a striker, going to a winger, and then being sort of a wing back, I think Tony Pulis showed me and made me understand how to defend. And that gave me the transition to go into Portsmouth under Harry Redknapp to play wing back and know that how to play defensively when you had to, but also attacking. So I think they three and Nigel Worthington when I was at Norwich were absolutely sensational.
Ruffy, the Dutch used to do that at Ajax, make you play different positions?
Aye, never did it with me. No, you're right, you know, that every time I speak I'm going way back the 70s, you know, formations were out the window, you know, you never had a back five or a, you know, you just were, I keep telling Peter, and then when we won the League Cup in 1971, when we beat Celtic, we were 4-2-4. We had two people in midfield and two wingers. Two wingers and two strikers. Yeah. And that's what we played. We just played to attack. We never ever set a stall out to sit in and defend. You know, it just wasn't the makeup then. You just went out and tried to win every game.
What was that Hibs team like you played in, Kevin? What was the highlights for you?
I think for me the highlight is making my debut. Yep. You know, up at St Johnstone, sitting on the bench as a kid, YTS money, and going 2-0 up, and knowing that you're getting 500 quid win bonus, sitting on a bench. That was my first thought. My first thought. And then the nervousness of the manager shouting me on, and you know you're going to get on. That's pretty surreal. But you know, I think there's so many good memories at Hibs that is because as a club, you know, I thought it was the right move for me. You know, because I wanted to, like we hear so many times now, kids want to be in the first team as soon as possible. You know, I made my debut at 17, so I feel that I had made the right decision to get. That's not to say that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else, but I just felt that Alec Miller coming up to my house and looking after me and having a succession planning, so to speak, he put the faith in me there. But also scoring your first goal, I think scoring your first goal is genuinely one of the best moments of your career. But I also always remember the game that sort of probably catapulted me from a little known of this kid coming through to, you know, people stopping you in the street for your autograph, and in the cinema. It was when I scored the winner against Rangers. We beat them 2-1, and that was probably the shift from a bit known to
Who was in the Rangers side that day?
Mark Hateley, Allan McCoist, Andy Goram, Charlie Miller was there as well. So it was proper team. But
what was the tactics that day? Was it soak up, hit them in the counter? Or?
I can't even remember. I just remember being a kid, and you know what it's like as a kid. There's no fear.
No,
there's genuinely no
fear.
Easter
Road, or
Easter Road. It was
Easter going to affect the game. That's
like,
yeah, thinking about.
And then you move on to like my first derby was when we won to stop that. I don't know how many games they won, against Hearts, and I remember.
22.
But was it? I remember sitting. It was funny because
19 of them.
Because I remember sitting in the changing room and seeing the older guys' faces, really nervous and really worried. Yeah, as a kid, and I'm like, what are you worried about? It's just a game of football. But as you grow older and you get to that bit more experience, you sort of understand when you're going through a run. You're like, oh no, here we go again.
And you're overthinking.
Here we go again. Aye.
Was there any players in that team that you'd really looked up to?
Kevin McAllister, I think for me was probably the one that I took a lot from as a wide player, because I think Crunchy, if you ever watch Crunchy playing, the way he slows down defenders and then goes again, that was something that I done, that I came from him. But I think there was so many that I took. Think of Pat McGinley was like top goal scorer at Celtic for one season, and then came back at Hibs. He was scoring goals all the time. Darren Jackson, Keith Wright, really seasoned pros as well. Gordon Hunter, excellent pro. So there was, I think, as a kid, you look up to a lot of the players there. A lot of the players, when you go in, you just, wow, they can do that, they can do this, and you try and take wee bits from them. Yep. And I remember going in. I was talking to my son about this last night as we were going to use football. I remember my first training session with the first team, Alec Miller shouting us over, as you always had the two squads, and then going, yeah, I want to be over there. And then he gives you the shout, and then you just go like really nervous. You go really nervous. your legs are a bit jelly, and you go in, and I remember just smashing. I think it was Graham Mitchell. He smashed them in a tackle, and I get kicked everywhere the whole rest of the session. But it was for me to just go.
Did the tackle settle you down?
It did, but I get booted right, left and centre from every. It felt as if they were trying to give me a lesson when I was trying to go, well, I'm big enough to be here, as a 16, 17-year-old kid. But it was good. It was good because it was a really good grounding. It wasn't like the surfaces we were playing with. If you probably know, play at Wardie. We were training at Wardie, which is like a rugby place. And it was like the rolling hills, and you're walking down with the goals, you're walking in with the kit and stuff. But all that really, really, for me, was a really good eye opener at football. You hear people talking about players are on X, Y, Z amount of money, and yeah, they are, but they don't see you. Certainly, when I was younger, I had to be up at 6 a.m, get in for 9, and sometimes I wasn't getting back to 7. At night, and then it was just again. You don't see that. I don't think you get that now.
So did you always travel through from Glasgow, through Edinburgh? Yeah.
So when you're on the ground staff, you've got to clean the stadium, clean all that, scrub the floors, do the kit, all that back in the day. Yeah.
Any big names you used to clean the boots for?
Murdo McLeod used to. Murdo McLeod was, when he went in, he was like different class. Just, you could see, he was hard as nails. He could pass, he could run, he could tackle. Everything about him was great, and he was really such a nice, kind person.
Was he kind in the Christmas bonus?
Always.
Who'd you think clean my boots at Hibs? Now you're talking 82, 83.
82.
Well, Mickey Weir was young at the time. It was Mickey Weir, Gordon Hunter, Eddie May. They were all there. So, but who do you think cleaned my boots?
John Collins.
John Collins. He only got a 10 of it.
That's interesting. I was the same. I think even when I was cleaning boots, you took proper pride in it.
Oh yeah, you did.
It kind of meant if it was a battle to see who cleaned the boots properly. Yeah. So what would you say was your favourite game in a Hibs shirt?
I think it's got to be, my favourite game's got to be the derby when I scored the winner. Scored the winner, Derby Day, New Year's Day against Hearts. Always remember the game before. we played Rangers and we get beat 7-0, and we were like 2-0 down, and I came on at half time and obviously changed the game. You know what I mean? And then Poynton scored like after 7 minutes, and I remember having the ball in my hand, going back to the halfway line, thinking, "Holy, this could be a scalping." And then they had a chance right after it to make it 2-0. I can't remember who it was. Foreign boy put it wide, and then Michael O'Neill scored the equaliser, and I scored the volley for the edge of the box, and we won 2-1. So for me, that's the one that stays in my memory so much, because I don't think it gets much better when you're playing your local rivals. No. So on New Year's Day, probably one of the biggest games of the calendar, and to score the winner as a young kid was brilliant.
Did you celebrate it as a team?
No. I celebrated it though.
You celebrated it? In Edinburgh,
no,
back to Glasgow?
Back to Glasgow. It was always
where would that have been back then, Glasgow?
Don't know. I don't want to mention it. Know where you were going anyway, that's for sure.
You obviously mentioned your debut, but what was it like leaving Hibs?
It was weird. It was actually really weird, because I remember we were due to play Dundee United in the Cup, and Allan McCoist was in, and he phoned and said, "Listen, Derby are interested, and they want you to go down and trial." This was after obviously the Saturday game, so I travelled in the Sunday, played the game on the Monday, and then I was signed by the Thursday. So the biggest disappointment as a player when you've came through the ranks is to say, I think you want to say a thank you to the fans for supporting you all through your career with them, and that was the biggest disappointment for me, that I didn't get to do that because it all happened so quickly. But also, I was also pissed off with the manager at the time as well, because I was like, I want to stay here. I want to stay.
Who was it then?
Allan McCoist. I want to stay here, but when I thought about it and realised that probably at that time we had been relegated, we were in in League One Championship, I was probably one of the only ones they would have got money for, at that time. So when I looked at it in the cold light of day, went, okay, I get it. The manager wanted to sell an asset so that he could get money, so that he could rebuild, and they brought in Sosi and Latipi, so you know what I mean, decent players. So if it wasn't for me, then Hibs would have never had their players. That's what I tell myself anyway.
What was it like for you, obviously leaving Thistle after all the years?
Well, Thistle was okay because I'd been there 12 years and I had a good rapport with everybody that was there. It was more of a family club sort of there. Unfortunately, I didn't have the same vibe that Kevin had with Alec Miller at Hibs. It just didn't go on well at all.
You didn't?
No, I think Alec had come in and he'd realised that there was a lot of older players in the team, like me, Jackie McNamara, Ralph Callaghan, and he thought maybe I need to change it, and obviously you don't want to go when you've been somewhere a long time, and I knew he was bringing Andy Goram in, and so...
Were you opinionated as older players then? Would it have been hard for a manager coming in?
No, there was a lot of things going on with me in the background. I'd been promised a testimonial, and it was the next year I was to get the testimonial when he decided I wasn't getting it, and it turned a bit sour, and there was no point in me, because he knew I wouldn't hang about in the reserves for a year.
Mm-hmm. It's good to know you've forgotten about it and you're
let it go. Aye. But these things happen in football. Yeah. It's not, everybody thinks it's a bed of roses, but sometimes in your career things like that happen to you and you've just got to deal with it. So I went to America and had a great time.
Well, it worked out for them. Kevin, was it a dramatic change, obviously leaving Hibs and heading down south?
Yeah, it was, because when I went to Derby, they were obviously in the Premier League, and I had always wanted to play in the Premier League. But just even going into their training ground was so much different. And the week before I left, Pat McGinley he had I think it was an Audi he had as a car driving through, and he bought one of the Yugos. And we drove. I was in a Yugo the last transfer, last journey through to Hibs and back, and then I go down to Derby, and there's like Ferrari F1 Spiders, there's Aston Martins, there's M3s, there's Audi A8 V12s, and I'm just like...
Who had the Ferrari Spider?
Lars Behiren, and you go into the training ground and they have a little 7-a-side pitch where they only use on a Friday, they have a big indoor place, they have a gym, They have a big hut with just massage chairs that you go in every single day before training, and then they've got this big, training ground that is immaculate, and you think, wow, this is a bit different.
Did you feel overawed by it, or did you feel...
I did feel a wee bit overawed at the start, because you're leaving everybody, you're leaving, what you know, and you're going down there, and you know what it's like. You know what it's like. You're in a hotel for up to 3 months, just before you get somewhere, and it's just like, this is big, and you go and see the players, and you've watched them on TV, and then you're just...
It's ultimately the football ends up settling you down, isn't it?
It is.
As much as because you already have certain thoughts of players, obviously, like you said, on the TV, you think about the size of the club. I think, being in the same situation myself, it's ultimately what you do in the football pitch, then you start to feel that you belong in a place like that.
I think it's always difficult when you go to a different club, in a different country. I know it's only England, but still, you've got you know the teams, you know the players where you're playing, and then you're going into somewhere where you don't know anybody, and you're just trying to go, right, how do I find my way? You're not get your home comforts, and you just hope that one player, gravitates towards you, or welcomes you in. And
was there a player that
Rory Delap helped me through it, yeah, and Stefano Ranio as well. Stefano Ranio helped me through. Dean Sturridge as well, to be fair. But it was just really, you're playing with, it's just a different level. Yeah. You've got Jim Smith, who's a legendary manager. You've got Steve McLaren, who went on to become a legendary coach and manager. You've got Steve Round, who's assistant. Billy McEwen as well, the Scottish guy, and you just the difference on monetary side of what the training ground was. Yep. Not necessarily the monetary side and what you're getting, but just the difference you just see the difference of how big a club they are compared to...
I'm having a guess that the wages were different as well. Did you have
just a wee bit
to handle that? Was that easy to handle?
It was, I think your first wage is, you just go a bit mental.
I did, yeah.
You just go a bit mental because it's like, wow, I'm getting this. Mm-hmm. And then the realisation of...
What were you getting there?
Not enough. But I think Derby was a great fit for me. I played and didn't play as much as I wanted to, start as much as I wanted to, but we finished 8th in the league, the best I've ever finished. I played 42 games that season. Well, I appeared in 42. Yeah. Probably played in total probably one. The amount of substitutions at the time I was going on, but it was a really, really good experience for me.
See, in these situations where you are coming on for 5-10 minutes, I've been in the same situation myself. How was your training week look? Did you still train hard, trying to wait for that moment where you get the start, or did you start to get frustrated and maybe come off the gas a wee bit?
No, I was always 100%, because I was wanted to prove to the manager that I deserved to be in the team. Especially at Derby, you're coming to a new place and the manager's put faith in you. So for me, it was about just going in and working as hard as I possibly could, because ultimately you've got nothing else to do.
I know.
You've got nothing else. It's a lonely life.
Was there a player you identified that you had to dislodge to get in the team?
Rory Delap.
Your pal.
Rory Delap, because he was
interesting.
He was
taking him out for drinks at night. Here have another in, Rory.
He was playing wing back, so I was a different player from him. The system that Jim played was, he did play a 4-4-2 at times, but he played Rory as well, because Rory was an absolute machine. Even if you look at his son at Ipswich, yep, they're very similar. They're big lads, they're built, they're just willing to just go to battle, but on that, he's such a nice boy as well, such a nice guy as well, Rory. Do you know what I mean? So, you like to see him doing well, but you're also going, well, I want to take your place, or you're just asking for the manager to change the system.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And thankfully, we always say when somebody gets injured, you get an opportunity. So we go to Liverpool, loads of injuries, get to start and score on my first start in the Premier League. You score against Liverpool in front of the Kop and you win 2-1. Mm. So I was quite happy. I was quite happy with that. I was quite happy. Off you pop, wee man. You've done your bit.
That's incredible. Who was in that Liverpool team?
David James was in goals. Michael Owen played. McManaman played. Robbie Fowler, Jamie Redknapp, Bjornaby played. Paul Ince, I think, played as well. I think Paul Ince played. So it was a
good goal.
Decent side. A header back across the goalkeeper from about 10 yards out.
Big guys, well.
Aye.
Huge.
Yeah. And then Paolo Wanchop scored the winner.
Paolo Wanchop, remember?
Well, he scored and made it 2-0, sorry. And then Jamie Redknapp scored to make it 2-1, and then it was like backs to the wall for the rest of the game.
Was there any funny moments in that team that you can remember?
And not really in the Derby team, no. There wasn't.
Because everybody goes back to
they just go back to their separate bit. You know how it's like. Sometimes you gravitate to some people and sometimes you don't. Yeah. And I think a lot of the players, there was a lot of foreign players there, like Igor Stimac was there, Stefan Schnorr was there, Lars Bohinen, as I said, Chicho Baiano, Stefan Iranio, who kept Rutilla out of the AC Milan team, was there. So they got a different culture than us. So that's probably why when I went there, I gravitated more to Rory Delap, Dion Burton, Dean Sturridge, because they were British, they were English, but obviously same sort of culture.
Yeah, it was similar for me when I went to West Brom. I came from a change room at Dundee United where we'd all been a really close-knit squad, and then going down there and guys just had completely different lives outside of football, and you were going back to the flat and watching telly. There's generally not much else you could do. That was one of the things I found really difficult.
Graham Souness tells a story when he went to Sampdoria.
Yeah.
And in pre-season they used to take them up into the hills for like 3 weeks. They'd seen nothing, just training. And then the coach came in one day and said, right, I'm going to give you a day off. You can go into the village. And his immediately, I mean, Graham wasn't a big drinker, but his immediately thought was, oh, we're going into town to get tanned, or have a right good blowout. And he says the only thing that the Italians wanted a day when they get into the village was to have an ice cream. That was all they wanted. An ice cream, stick and I think they have a cigarette. That was all the Italian footballers wanted.
That's incredible. So if Portsmouth, in terms of a team, there wasn't many stories. Talk to us about Portsmouth.
Portsmouth, going down there, Tony Pulis was the manager, Milan Mandžić was the owner. I had never really heard of Portsmouth, never ever. I was obviously not playing at Derby and I wanted to play. The one thing for me as a footballer was, I'm a footballer, so I want to play football. Whether I have to drop down the leagues or whether I have to go on loan, then I'm quite happy to do that, because I wanted to play. Yep. I wanted to play as many games as I could. And I get people want to sit on the bench and earn big money. I've got no issue with that, but for me it was about playing football. As a footballer, if you're a footballer, you should want to play. Whether that's different for goalkeepers. If you're a reserve goalkeeper, then it's a bit different. But went down there, Milan Mandžić, Tony Pulis came to the hotel, put me at the hotel, told me what they were trying to do, and it was a no-brainer for me. It was an absolute no-brainer. Because
Mandžić was a character, wasn't he?
He was brilliant. He was really good. I don't think he gets as much recognition for us getting promoted as he probably should, because he pretty much bankrolled it. And when I went down there, it was Tony Pulis had sold me where they wanted to go. Him and Milan Mandžić, they were struggling a little bit, but for me it was good. I was going to play, and I liked Tony Pulis. So I went down there and we were rubbish. We were rubbish for a while.
Was that what type of football was Tony Pulis at that time? Because he obviously has a reputation of being in the Premier League when football had evolved a bit. It's not been, obviously you hear stories.
I think anybody that works under Tony Pulis would tell you that training's probably the same day in, day out. A lot of shape, but a lot of fitness stuff. But I was quite happy with that, because it was when you're in the Championship, you have to be fit and you have to be organised. You know that yourself. So that's what you have to do. And he done it, and he played. I almost played right wing, was a second right back, but. But that's what it was.
Doubling up, going back.
Yeah. Doubling up and you have to go yourself forward. They didn't want any overlaps, as much as possible. But I learned so much of the game under Tony Pulis, the defensive side of the game, because up until then I was just, I'll go. I didn't want to do the defending.
What type of defensive things, like getting out and stopping crosses?
Getting out, stopping crosses, positional sense, where you should be when the ball's over the other side as a wide man, where you should be is if the goalkeeper gets the ball, where can you get on the ball? Because for me it was about, I was one of the wingers that would just go, you get the ball to me and then I'll do my bit. Yeah. I'm not really interested in your bit. Just get me the ball and I need to do. Yeah, I'm a part of it. I'm a cog in a team, but I'm not going to encroach on you as a centre midfielder because that's not my domain. I'm a winger. I'm there to provide chances for the striker. So if you get me the ball, I'll go and do that. But it was like 100-yard doggies you were doing.
You must have been super fit.
You were doing 100-yard doggies, but I know people have got a lot of things they say about Tony Pulis that it was mind numbing and that, but I enjoyed it. I don't know if it was just the hard work I enjoyed.
The thing that I used to remember watching Portsmouth on the telly was the fans were fanatical. I've never been. Is it quite a compact stadium? Everything seemed to be really tight.
You're about
behind the goals and
about 20,000 it holds. I think it's more now, but when we were there, it was like 18,000. They filled in one of the corners. But I remember going down in my first game. But I went down in sort of February time, and it was like sunshine for 2 weeks. Shorts and t-shirts, shorts and t-shirts, palm trees on the front. In my first game, I'm like, just don't know what you're expecting. And the fans from minute 1 to minute 90,
no matter the score,
just singing. And I'm like, what is happening here? This is just weird. The cowbell going, you know what I mean? The drum going. And it was just like, wow, what a place to play. But when you're rubbish, they do get on your back. And we, obviously Tony then get the sack, and then Graham Ricks came in, and your man Prozinecki came in.
Tell us about him. Obviously a player that many people know about and his qualities. What was it like?
It was just
someone of that quality.
He was 32, I think. He was 32 when he came in, and he was absolutely unbelievable as a player. He had that wee drag, but that wee drag where he rolled his foot over the ball. He could actually come up to you and say, Kevin, I'm going to drag this, and you would still fall for it.
Yeah.
It was that good. But he was, I think he was in team of the year. I think we finished 16th or something. So we were like obviously less than like the halfway, nearer the bottom than we were in the top, and he was just sensational. I remember one day, obviously this is one of the stories that I'm meant to keep, but I'm running up the wing and I'm shouting, Robbie. He comes in at half time and he just goes, Kevin, don't shout, I see you. And I was like, right, that's cool. But I was quite willing to do his running because you just get him the ball and he would do something special on it, and he was just such a pleasure to be in the team with. He's the best player that I've ever played alongside.
Just from a sheer technical.
Just from a sheer technical point of view, I can't believe at 32 I would have loved to have seen him at 24. Yeah. When he was Barcelona, Real Madrid, when he was both, but he was absolutely sensational.
They said that he smoked 100 fags a day. Did you know any players like that?
No, there was one player, Alec Hara at Thistle. He liked a cigarette, but the biggest smoking story I've got is when we played Brazil in the World Cup, and wee Gordon Strachan and Sócrates get pulled for the drug test. And wee Gordon said he was in there and he was sitting for about an hour. Just couldn't do it. And Sócrates came in with a cigarette and a bottle of beer and just walked up, he'd into the bottle and said, I'll catch you later. Gordon was still there for about an hour. He's away with his cigarettes.
Prozinecki was just at half time in the toilet. There you go, just getting a cigarette off the cap, man. He was just like, go in and then that would be it.
I tell a lie, we Henry Templeton at Airdrieonians, we Henry would be the team talk. Ali would be doing the team talk at Airdrieonians, and he would go, where's Henry? And I would say, I think he's a toilet boss. And I'd go, Airdrieonians, the wee toilet.
Yes.
And then I'd say, I'll go and get him, and you'd open the door and the smoke would be piling out. So he was at the worst at club level.
I wonder how guys genuinely back then got away with obviously smoking them in the fags and having to do, especially in a Tony Pulis team.
Well, obviously he was in it. He was in with Graham Ricks. He was in Prozinecki was in with Graham Ricks. So I think Milan had obviously brought him in. You know, brought Robbie in. How he got him there, I have no idea. You know, obviously it's incredible to think, but when I think of training and stuff, Mark Burchill was down there at the time as well, and I always would love to ask Robbie, what was your thoughts when you came to Portsmouth and you saw how bad we were compared to you? you know.
Well, what was the vibe you got from him? Did he look like he loved it there?
I think he really enjoyed it there, even though we weren't the greatest side there. You know, in all honesty, I think he really, really enjoyed it. The fans love him. You mentioned that sort of era, that time. You know, all they speak about is Merson and Prozinecki. There's my next question. Paul Merson.
That's
the two. So when we won the championship, Merson was. I say Robbie's the best player that I've ever played alongside. Paul Merson's the only player that I have ever seen take a club from with the bootstraps and take them and get them promoted to the Premier League. He was on a different level.
What was special about Paul Merson in terms of
just his
ability?
Absolute vision. You know, you talk about kids being able to play with both feet now. Merson was so left-footed. I think he touched the ball probably once or twice with his right foot the whole game. Everything was outside of the left foot if it was, or inside of the left foot. But he as well just created space, you know, and he just drove us as a captain. He just drove us on, you know, and everybody's aware of the issues he had, you know, the gambling and that. But when he was at Portsmouth, he never saw any of that, you know. But
I think even more so, like, from just my genuine interest about a player like that at Portsmouth who's kind of dictating play, and he's obviously every time you're going to play opposition, their whole game plan: stop Paul Merson, you stop.
100%.
Portsmouth, so he's having to figure out different ways to still obviously impact the game, and that says a lot.
He had a presence about him, didn't he? He had a sort of a stature.
Yeah, it was almost like a Cantona-esque when he was at Portsmouth. The way Cantona was at Man U, he was like that at Portsmouth for one season. For one season, he was the catalyst of every single thing that happened that season. You know, he would give him the ball in tight areas, and he would just do something. Magic. That's why he's called the Magic Man, innit? Yeah, you know, exactly. And such a nice guy as well. Such a nice guy, such a down to earth guy. You know, but he's the only person. He's the only person that I've ever played alongside that could do nothing all week. The old additive of train the way you play. Mm-hmm. You could do nothing all week and then go on a Saturday and be sensational. and I've never ever saw anybody like that.
Yeah, it's interesting that, and he loved the holiday.
Aye, well, he did love a holiday. I think we've obviously heard this story about, you know, when he phones Harry and says, "Listen, Harry, I've got some issues. I need a wee bit a time off. I'm going, you know, into counselling or whatever," and then he ends up in Bahamas, I think it was, or Barbados, and Harry's mate's walking along the beach, and he's like, "I thought Merson was meant to be in at the clinic," and he's like, "Yeah, he is," and he's like, "No, he's not. He's on this beach chilling in Barbados." Yeah.
That happened with the late Andy Goram. Andy went away with Hibs to Tenerife or something like that, with the Hibs team. Yep. They were away for about 8 days, and they come back for Hibs, and they flew into Heathrow. And here the Oldham boys were going away for their training, so he went away with them. He just got off the plane and he went away with Oldham.
That's brilliant.
Brilliant.
Have you ever tried to pull a stroke like that?
No, I never. Wouldn't get away with it. Not smart enough to get caught with anything like that.
I wasn't brave enough.
No,
I was the same.
I'd have been shipped. But I think it's Harry. When Harry Redknapp was the manager at that time, you know, Harry knows how to build teams. He knows how to look after the right top players. Yeah. You know, and Merson, to be fair to him, you know, he could literally have done whatever he wanted because he was that good. And it's the old adage: if you're doing really well, you get away with a lot. I think if I had done that, I'd have been in the reserves and shipped right out. So, but
was that your most enjoyable time in your career, or?
I think it's probably the most fun I've had, if that makes sense. You know, because
that's a good using the word fun.
Yeah.
When we all start as kids, that's what you play football for.
Yeah.
So,
because at Hibs, you're nervous. You know, you're like, am I going to make it? You know, there's loads of things going through your head. You don't know how. You don't understand. You don't really understand the game. You know, no, you don't understand. You don't understand how you can get from, you know, starting, you know, or just getting in the team on the bench to starting, and then looking after yourself to get to that next level, and then you go to a club like Portsmouth where you stay up in the last game of the season in the Championship, 2 seasons before you get promoted, and you see the fans crying with relief of staying up, and then 2 years later you see fans with joy of winning the Championship, being the best team and playing the best, because you have that carefreeness of they score 5, we'll score 6. They score 6, we'll score 7, and that's the way it was that whole season. You know, we literally done
which is sometimes the best way to win games, isn't it?
100%. We just done like, our training session was a warm up, a bit of possession in a game. That was it.
I think supporters realise how much fun it is. It's fun. From Monday morning to Friday, it's a carry on. You know, it's doing something. You're working hard.
Yeah.
You're having banter with your pals. You're having wind ups. From Monday to Friday, everybody just thinks about the game on the Saturday. But see, the Monday to Friday, it's brilliant.
That's the best.
You're turning up. You know who you're going in to meet your mates. Yeah. You know you're going to do something you love doing, and you're enjoying every minute of it. And then obviously the pressure comes on when Saturday comes, but it's a fun time.
But it's the moments though. Then when you couple it in with the fact you then go on and win something, it's stuff that lives with you too.
100%. It's got, and it's just that it's amazing that when you're winning, it's so much better.
It's so much better.
You know, that's what you're in the game for. You're in the game to win. You know, yeah, there's people that are in it for money and for all that. You know, but for me, it's just a genuine pleasure to have been a footballer at the level that I got to. That's when I look back on it, really, really humbled about getting to that point. But when you look, I didn't really appreciate winning the league until I retired. When you look back on it, because it's almost like you've won the league, right? Okay, what's next?
Yeah.
You know, and it's that. And then when you look back at it and you go, played 40 round about 40 games in a team that pretty much sailed the league. You know, and that's the enjoyment of it. That's the enjoyment when you look back and you go, wow, I actually done that.
Obviously speaking about starting at the start and now finishing up your playing career, what were the thoughts like at that point? It was
a difficult situation because I never ever thought that I was ready to retire, never ever. And the reason I retired was I was looking in a window and went to turn right and done my knee, done the outside of my cartilage, and got an operation, came back, it wasn't right, had to get another operation, and then it was just like, well, that's you.
What age?
32. 32. So I had two options at the time. At 32, I had two options of, one was get a bone realignment or get a knee replacement. That was the two that I had, all just because of looking in a window and going to turn right. And I was like, I'm not taking any of them. I'm not taking any of them. All I want to do is run about the park with my kids. But then you get to the point, you get to this age, and you go, I could do a wee bit of a game on over 40s, and you go and get sucked into over 40s, and you go, and then you walk it, you come back and your knees like that, and a Monday, Tuesday, and then you've got another game the following week, and it's like that.
And then you go, your decision was right.
Yeah. But I think probably I could have went part time, or I could have managed it. But I think at the time I was probably ready to retire because I wasn't really enjoying it. I had been at Dunfermline and I wasn't really enjoying it. But I think part time. I think now I could have done part time, but at the time I don't think I would have been disciplined to do part time. You know, because I wanted to. You've got that mindset of training every day and playing every day, and I think that's for me was probably why I didn't look at the part time stuff, but probably should have.
Yeah. Well, you then obviously went on to be a manager. How did that come about?
Well, I think it's been well publicised. I applied for the Albion Rovers job about 4 times before I got it, 3 or 4 times before I got it, and I applied for pretty much every single job that was going. And that was the first ever interview I got. And I remember saying to them, well, if you employ me, you'll stay up. And then I came out of the interview and goes, Kevin, why did you say that? Because they were 7 points adrift. We were 7 points adrift and ended up getting the job. And I went in, and as a coach or as a manager, you always think you can improve what you've got. And that's always, in my opinion, that's what you should do. You should be able to improve players. But I think it became relevant that the players couldn't get to the point where we needed to get them. And that's no disrespect to them, because the previous manager had felt that they could do a job in Division 2, which when I went in, I didn't feel they could. So it was having to turn their players round, which was really difficult on such a small budget. You know, we had players on minimum wage, you know, over the course, and it was difficult because the team closest to us were Queen's Park, and they were training at Lesser Hampden, playing at Hampden. We were training at St Ambrose High School and playing at, you know, anywhere. You know, playing in Coatbridge, you know, and it was difficult, but I enjoyed it. You know,
Are you wanting to get back in again?
Yeah, I'd love to get back in. I think I've got a lot to give, and I think the job that I done at Albion Rovers was a good job. You know, because we ended up staying up with 6 points, so there was a massive turnaround, and it was certainly a baptism of fire. But I get that it's difficult. You've been out the game for so long. You know, it's difficult to get back in. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if the opportunity comes, whether that's in a coaching role or a assistant, it doesn't have to be a manager. You know, I've applied for pretty much every single job that comes up, and I've had 2 interviews. So.
When you took the manager's job, obviously Albion Rovers was around the one you went to specifically, who you'd worked with in your career for advice.
Tony Pulis, spoke to Tony Pulis, but you know, I've got probably a bit of a drive of, you know, singular mindedness. This is how I'm going to do it, you know, because I think if you're not true to yourself, who can you be true to? You know, when in management, I like to think that, you know, I'll live and die by my sword. You know, yeah, I'll take other people's influence and, you know, ideas and thoughts, but ultimately at the end of the day, I have to make the decision. You know, and if you don't do that, I think it's very easy to get sidetracked from where you're trying to get to. You know, it's not a straight road. We all know that. We all know football's not a straight road. You know, but through my experience, and probably I would say one of the biggest things that I have in my side is I wasn't always a starter. I know what it's like to think you're starting and not starting and be on the bench.
Put yourself in there.
Yeah, and I think you also know when you're going, I'm doing really well in training, and then you're up the stand.
Yep.
And how you manage that life cycle. I think that's probably the most difficult thing.
And football now, what do you love about football now, and what do you not like so much?
I don't like VAR.
Not like VAR.
I don't think I will. I don't know if there's many people that like VAR. I think football is very sterile. I think there's very sterile. I think when I look back in my era, it was probably the best era in the sense of your era, Ruffy, with tackling was like ridiculous. Right, that was like over the top. Pitches. And pitches as well.
We spoke about it last week as well. It doesn't seem to be as much individualism. You know, the individual, the guy who gets you off your seat is now, as you're saying latterly in your career, you're being asked to do other things. You're not being focused on what you're good at, you know, but I want you to do this and I want you to do that. And I think that's fallen out of the game a wee. I think the entertainer, that's the word I'm looking for, has fallen out of the game. It's more a collective.
Yeah,
we've all got to work together.
People say that to me and ask me what team do I support and stuff like that, and I always say I don't really support anybody now because I've been in both sides of it. But it's about who would put my bum on a seat, who would I be willing to go and pay and watch. I think for me that's who it is. And
who is that player at this moment in time?
I really don't know. You know, I look at Callum McGregor and I think he's head and shoulders above pretty much everybody in the Scottish Premiership in Scottish football. I like watching him because he simplifies the game. He's not got that massive flair, but as you look at it, I probably look at it now from a coach's point of view rather than a player's point of view. But And I think we have to go back to not necessarily the rough and tumble, but when you look at the leagues, the lower leagues, you know, you look at the Championship, you know, you look at the Championship compared to the Premiership in England even, it's like, I'd rather watch a Championship game than a Premier League game. You know, Celtic and Rangers are so far ahead of everybody here that it becomes boring, and Celtic are probably far ahead from Rangers right at this present moment in time. You know, Rangers will come back, but I think the Scottish League is too small, and there's not enough kids coming through in the sense of, right, how do we get kids through? Well, we hear clubs saying we've got no money. So if you've got no money, why would you not invest in the money that you have in kids and bring them through so that we become better? Because we're not a country that is blessed.
That looks, from me, from what I've seen in youth football, and obviously been in the first team game for a while, they just don't have that 5-year cycle. Everything's done in short term.
Yeah.
And a lot, especially in Scotland, because teams are worried obviously about being relegated. Teams come up. It's very hard to get that a long-term plan in place where you can get these kids through. Guys in the 18s managers, they're moving on to bigger things. Same with B-team managers, I think. So you know yourself, one manager can love you, and then within 6 months, the guy.
No, I get that, but I think it's more for me. It's under the top two, you know, levels of, you know, first team and, you know, under 18s. It's the younger age group where you can mould people and you can get them to a point where you can get them into the team, or you can risk giving. I don't know if managers want to risk, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's live or die, like you're saying. But we have to look at it and see how can we change the model. Because if you look at the two biggest teams in Scotland, Celtic and Rangers, and the money that they put through their youth academies, and for the amount of kids that come through on a yearly basis, I don't think it's a great.
It's becoming more apparent now that these kids at 18 and 19, they're not hanging about.
Yeah.
If I'm not getting a game here, I'm away down to West Ham, or I'm away down here. They're all. That's changed. That aspect of the game, that has changed.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's as much love in the game now, you know, or if it's just a monetary love. Yeah, that's a question.
Well, Kevin, it's been a joy speaking to you today. Thanks to Kevin Harper. Obviously, thanks to Ruffy for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe to PLZ Soccer YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.